It's a 2023-2024 Los Angeles Lakers season preview next on The Dime.
You are now listening to The Dime with Josh and Quab, your go-to NBA podcast. Subscribe on Apple, follow on Spotify, and be sure to hit up the YouTube channel for video content. And now your hosts, Josh and Quab.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Dime. Today we are previewing the most decorated team in NBA history. It's the Los Angeles Lakers 2023-2024 season, and we are joined by the producer of Fox Sports Radio's The Odd Couple with Chris Broussard and Rob Parker, and also Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Rob Guerra, or Rob G, as he's known. Rob G. Rob, how are you?
Yeah,
man?
it's like a brand at this point, even though literally nobody outside of, media calls me Rob, but sure, let's do it.
All right, Rob G, baby, let's do it. Nice to have you on the show, man. Just quick background. Rob and I met. He produces Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre. I do some back-end stuff with the volume with it. So we just, kick it every once in a while. And, yeah, he's a Laker fan. He's someone who is very reasonable, objective takes. Had to get him on the show. Rob, once again, appreciate you coming on the show to talk about your team. And from anything that I've heard on Straight Fire, this is gonna be entertaining because you have takes.
I have a lot of takes. I'm not gonna lie and pretend that they're all reasonable takes.
Okay, that's perfect.
Just saying.
I like unreasonable takes. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that.
All right, let's get into it. Let's preview the season. Let's take it back to last season first, actually, because it was like two seasons for the Lakers. It was the first half where they just couldn't get anything going. I know Lakers Twitter wanted Darvin Ham fired after every single game. They lost a couple of heartbreakers at the buzzer. Russell Westbrook was on the squad. And then on the second half of the season, Rob Pelinka worked some magic, and all of a sudden they were a title contender. Go through that. Walk me through that as a Laker fan. How do you view last season? Is it just kind of like, that first half, that meant absolutely nothing. We're moving forward. Or is there still things that kind of concern you from that first half of the season?
Honestly, it was just super frustrating because anybody with half a brain knew that this Russell Westbrook experiment had to end in Los Angeles. Not to say that Russ was a bad player, and obviously he showed with the Clippers that he could still play at a high level in the right situation. You got to have spacing, you got to have shooting. The Lakers had none of that. Absolutely none. And I remember taking some heat on Twitter because I believe it was NBA 2K put out their ratings, and I think, if I recall correctly, it was Patrick Beverley was rated higher than Russell Westbrook in the 2K ratings.
That's crazy.
And I was
what was that rating? Was it low 70s?
Yeah, I was like, I think we've jumped the shark now. I think that we've gone a little bit too far. And everyone's like, no, Russ sucks. You see the bricks, see the turnovers. And it's like, here, he doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
With this specific team, there's no spacing. Him and LeBron are both kind of fighting over the same real estate. AD's in the paint all the time because he can't shoot a jumper anymore. It's just not going to work. So we all knew it wasn't going to work. And yet they decided to come into the season anyways with Russell Westbrook on the roster. So it was no surprise they started out 0-5 and 2-10 because it was just clunky. It didn't work. I mean, Matt Ryan, rest in peace. I don't even know if he's in the NBA anymore. Was getting meaningful minutes
he
for
hit a game winner, and then he disappeared.
He just totally disappeared.
He's on the T-Wolves. I think he's on the T-Wolves.
My apologies to Matt Ryan.
Bro, he hit a game winner agagy the Pelicans and disappeared.
And then he just gone.
Crypto.com arena and just started walking down Figueroa and no one's ever seen from him again.
He just vanished. But they needed meaningful minutes from him because they had no shooting whatsoever. Yeah. So as soon as the trade deadline comes around and they make the deal to get D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, and Malik Beasley, and it's like none of those guys are special players. D'Angelo Russell maybe can make an all-star team in a watered-down Eastern Conference one time, and that's pretty much the highlight of his career.
Go Nets.
But the difference is that at least the roster made sense now. You're like, okay, D'Angelo Russell, for all of his faults, he can hit open jump shots. Malik Beasley used to be able to hit open jump shots, not so much with the Lakers, but theoretically it made sense. Jared Vanderbilt could defend at a high level. And as soon as they put a roster together that even the most casual NBA fans thought, you got LeBron and AD with shooting and defense. That's it. I'm not asking you to do a whole heck of a lot more. That's pretty much all you need. And they run to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah,
I had them making the NBA Finals. I mean, they got swept, so it didn't really work out. But
right.
it didn't take a rocket scientist to see what they needed to do. So it was more frustrating than anything that if they would have made a move like this before the season, who knows with the chemistry that they would have been able to build, how deep they could have actually made it.
Yeah.
Why do you think they waited so long though to make the move? Because it feels like everybody, like you said, everybody kind of realized it wasn't Russell Westbrook wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good puzzle piece in the grand scheme of things. So why do you think Rob Pelinka and the other GMs they waited so long to make the move?
I got an answer you're probably not going to like. It's the Lakers tax. It's
no,
a real thing.
Okay.
It is a
All
real
right. I like
thing
it.
in the NBA. There are certain teams in sports, and it's across all sports, but in the NBA, certain teams and certain GMs are like, I am not going to help the Los Angeles Lakers. No matter what deal I make, no matter who I give up, they're going to say the Lakers won this deal. I'm helping out LeBron James. I'm helping them get their 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th championship. So the price that it's going to cost you to unload Russell Westbrook's expiring deal is going to be double what it's going to cost another team to unload an expiring deal. And I think that's why they didn't make a deal until the trade deadline, because what Indiana was asking, I don't think was reasonable at the time for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. Now, Miles Turner ended up playing really, really well. So I think that had they made the deal, the Lakers would have been like fleecing them because nobody expected that level of consistency from him. But at the time, you're like, hey, it's going to cost you a first-round pick to get off of Russell Westbrook, and then another first-round pick to get the players that you didn't even plan on keeping anyways at the time. Nobody thought they were going to keep Miles Turner.
Right. Yeah, Miles Turner's been on the trading block for like 7 years now.
Yeah. And then they sign him to this new contract specifically so they can trade him later.
Right.
Like everyone's like, yeah, they're going to keep him. No, they're not. They got him so that it's an appealing contract that now you have him locked up for a couple of years, and now it's a better trade asset.
Yeah. What do you think of Darvin Ham's first year? Like I mentioned before, I mean, Lakers Twitter was all on him in the first half of the year. I think he had a good playoffs, my personal opinion. What are your feelings as a Laker fan, though?
Oh, I was on his neck early during the season, just because like there were certain things that he was doing with the rotation specifically that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah. He insisted on playing 3 guys under 6'3" at all times. Yeah. Like I didn't understand that at all. And when you look back at it, you see that you forget that he was a rookie head coach. And these are things that are going to come with the rookie head coach. Like Ime Udoka had probably the most successful first season head coach this side of Steve Kerr, right? And that team was 500 all the way up until January. Like, and they had that roster was loaded. I think Boston's roster back then and even now is like a top 2 or 3 team period in the league. And even he couldn't figure it out with that team. So he definitely took some lumps, some growing pains. And it wasn't until he kind of just dumbed things down, really. Like when they got the roster, like, hey, we're going to play this style of basketball. We're going to run this style of defense. Anthony Davis, you are basically our defense. We are only going to run drop coverage. We're not going to switch a whole heck of a lot. We're not going to do a lot of trapping. It's AD. You protect the entire painted area, and that's our defense. So that's why when he's on the floor, they're a top 3 defense. When he's off the floor, they're a bottom 5 defense. Because they're just like, hey, we're just going to run the most basic shit and hope that our stars are good enough to elevate everyone around them. And, that kind of worked out until he got to Denver.
Well, speaking on AD, do you think that this is finally going to be AD's team, like, moving forward after he signed the extension?
No.
Okay.
Because I don't think Anthony Davis mentally is built like that, where he wants to be the leader, the vocal leader, the get on my back, I'm going to carry you kind of guy. I think he's comfortable just being a great basketball player. He's very Kevin Durant in that regard. Kevin Durant has gone on the record multiple times in multiple interviews to multiple outlets saying, look, I'm not a leader. That's not what I do. I'll lead by showing you my commitment to the game and how much, I want to perform well and how serious I take my craft. But as far as galvanizing a group of guys and saying, this is my team and we're going to go as far as I can take them, that's not Anthony Davis' personality. And I think soon as if you accept that, then it makes it a lot easier to stomach all things that comes along with it.
So that pretty much makes LeBron the leader still. So LeBron's 55 going in his 37th season. What are you expecting from him, though? Like, honestly, like, he's going to rest. So you could, is it like 60 games and a good playoff run? Like, as a Laker fan, knowing that LeBron's going to lead this team, are you still comfortable with that? And are you still thinking, hey, LeBron could be the best player on a championship team?
Well, I think Anthony Davis has been the best player for like the last 2 years.
Okay.
Like
fair.
just in terms of, what he brings to the table. I think he's more impactful.
Just not the leader. LeBron
Just not
can
the
be
leader.
without- got it.
Right.
Okay.
Like, I think that, I mean, I hate to bring it back to Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant in Golden State, I thought he was the best player, but he wasn't the leader of the team.
Right.
And I think Anthony Davis, because of what he brings defensively, and they have nobody that can duplicate what he does defensively, it carries so much weight. Like as great as LeBron is on offense, they have guys who can do like 50% of that. And they don't have anybody who can give 50% of what AD can do. That's just, it's not going to happen. As far as like moving forward, I'm not too concerned about the post LeBron era, whether that's, a year from now or 2 years from now. I don't think it's anything more than 2 years would be crazy. But I'm not as concerned because I believe that they are set up to acquire whoever that next leader star is going to be.
Okay.
Would that, I guess, post LeBron era probably will include fan favorite Austin Reaves, who got the bag this summer. What are your thoughts with Reaves? Like, what are your realistic expectations with him next season?
Oh, Hillbilly Kobe? Am
Hillbilly
I crazy
Kobe.
for saying first team All NBA? Austin Reaves. No. Look, Austin Reaves is like the perfect third guy, and he's not as talented as Bradley Beal. He's not. I don't think he's as good as like a Draymond Green. In Golden State, but he is like a connector of what the rest of the team needs. So if he can shoot the ball to be the outlet for LeBron and AD. He can set up AD for the pick and roll. He defends at a reasonably high level. And more than anything, he's just like a really smart basketball player. And it's funny because like he hits every single stereotype you have for white NBA players. But he's good. And everybody, especially, Twitter's a dark place, but everyone's people are overselling him because he's a Laker and he's not anything special. I believe there were some guys on Gilbert Arenas podcast saying that, because he's white and the Lakers suck, that's why he gets the pub that he gets. And then you watch him on Team USA basketball and he's doing the exact same thing with them as he does with the Lakers. Yeah, he just fills in the gaps on all these different teams, and he is like a low maintenance, low ego. So with any team in the NBA, if you have two stars, especially two ball dominant stars, if you can have a third guy who is comfortable and capable of doing everything else to make your team go, like I don't think you can ask for anything more out of your third best player.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, because when the Lakers won the championship back in the bubble, Kuzma, was probably talent-wise their third best player, but like at times Alex Caruso felt like their third best player.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people put a lot of stake into the big three, but necessarily like that third player, like you said with Draymond, he's a connector. You know what I mean?
Right.
Draymond's great at his role specifically for the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if he would be that way with another team. Austin Reaves, to me, he's just really smart. He's a really smart basketball player. And that is also like a white NBA player stereotype, but he just is. Like, he just knows where to be at every time. He makes the right pass. He knows when to shoot. Very rarely is he like taking a bad shot. He's smart defensively off the ball too as well. So I like Austin a lot. I don't think he's overhyped at all. Someone who I always thought was overhyped though was D'Lo. I am not a D'Lo fan at all.
Hating on D'Lo, then, man. What you doing?
D'Lo, man. His decision making. Just long story short, I went to a Nets Sixers playoff game, sat at the top, and I saw D'Lo run the pick and roll, and just seeing how many things he missed from like another angle like drove me effing nuts. Because I played point guard, and I'm dating myself here, but you get what I'm saying. You bring in Gabe Vincent. What is that going to look like? D'Lo, Gabe Vincent. How short of a leash is D'Lo going to have? He got benched in the playoffs. How is Darvin Ham going to work this?
Well, I hope you have your third eye open because the D'Angelo Russell contract was signed specifically to be traded at the trade deadline.
Okay.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but it's awful, coincidental that if you pair up D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura's contract, it's exactly what you need to get Kyrie Irving in a trade.
Oh God.
Just saying. Wow. I'm not saying, I'm just putting it out there. It just coincidentally, it's exactly what to match salaries. But look, D'Angelo Russell, he's a totally imperfect player, right? There's a lot of flaws in his game, and they were all exposed in the Denver series. If he's not hitting jumpers, he's kind of useless because he's very emotional as a player goes. And when he's hot and he's rolling, he's awesome. Yeah. But when he's not, you can't play him at all. Like it's just he goes as he's feeling. And the problem though is you couldn't lose him for nothing, right? The Lakers where they're at right now in their quest to win a championship, they needed him. They needed somebody with his skill set to, at a minimum, be an innings eater for the regular season, which he can do. Like that's totally fine. The Gabe Vincent thing, in theory, works out great. The problem though is history says guys who leave Heat culture like don't perform well.
Facts.
So if you're buying in, and I you know me, we've said on the other podcast on the volume, I'm not a believer in Heat culture. Like I'm not high on that. So if he can be, I'm not expecting the full playoff version of what we saw in the playoffs this past season. But if he's somewhere in between regular season and playoff version, then you can do much worse as your backup point guard.
Well, I'm on the other side. I'm very high on Heat culture, as Josh knows. I had him going to the finals.
Okay. You were the one.
Josh hates Heat culture because they beat the Knicks, but in terms of Gabe Vincent and some of the other players that the Lakers signed this offseason, is there anybody else that like kind of stands out to you with like, I guess, what was it, Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes, and Taurean Prince?
I really like the Taurean Prince signing because I think that he fits a role that the Lakers desperately needed, which was a big wing that would not be played off the floor in a playoff series because he can shoot. I don't think he's as good of a defender as Vanderbilt, but because he can hit an open jump shot, it automatically makes him more valuable in a playoff setting. Yeah. The guy actually that I'm most excited about, which I guess you could consider an addition because he didn't really play, is Max Christie. I think Max Christie is going to crack the rotation immediately as the backup shooting guard. And he's not going to have like an Austin Reaves level jump. I don't think that's reasonable. But watching him in summer league and summer league competitions, whatever, but there's certain things that he does that are going to translate to the varsity team. Like he defends at a really high level. He's long. He rebounds, good for his position. And the jump shot that people were talking about him coming out of college, he didn't hit at a high clip, but they said, look at his form. His form is so beautiful. Like eventually these shots are going to go in. And you saw in the summer league, catch and shoot, he's money. Even off the dribble, he was hitting some shots. So he's going to get so many opportunities to just at the beginning. You defend at a high level. He's long. He's like 6'6", and you hit the open jump shot. And if you have a LeBron and Anthony Davis-led team, just that prototype is super valuable. So I think you're going to see a lot of Sports Center inside the NBA highlight packages. Like, well, look, Max Christie had 12 points in 10 minutes, and he's going to become the next hated Lakers role player, I think.
Oh, God. That's going to be – I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. Before we get into some real Fugazi to predict, just how good the Lakers are going to be, you mentioned Kyrie Irving. I want to know, are there any rumored trades out there or any targets out there that Laker fans or you specifically might have their eye on? I mean, I know you guys want Tatum and everybody in the universe, but specifically a realistic trade target maybe by the deadline that you think could change this team.
I take offense to you say realistic because you and I have talked off the air a lot. And you know that my hashtag future Laker predictions are like 70% from the field. I shoot it at a high clip.
Let everybody know he's not lying. Actually,
like if you want to go back and this is documented. Like as soon as I got on Twitter when I was doing the Ben Maller overnight show on Fox Sports Radio, I had Dwight Howard as a future Laker. That came true. DeMarcus Cousins. Eventually that happened. He didn't really play, but we got him right. Chris Paul. I'm counting that. Because it's not our fault that that trade was vetoed.
It did happen.
I had Chris Paul as a future Laker.
It did happen.
Right? I had Russell Westbrook. I had LeBron James. I had Anthony Davis. We're still waiting to be determined on Paul George
Right.
Kawhi Leonard,
Jeez.
and Klay
Jeez.
Thompson.
Klay Thompson.
Now,
Klay Thompson.
we might get them when they're 40 years old and they're out of the
yeah.
league. And Carmelo Anthony, another guy I had the future Laker. We got Carmelo for one season, and he was kind of washed. He hit the open jumper. Other than that, he wasn't any good. I'm not saying that we might not get Klay Thompson at 38 years old in the Swan Song season, but just saying, like I hit these, pretty regularly. As far as guys, maybe this season or next off season, I think Jason Tatum is definitely a guy that they're keeping an eye on. Depending how things go in Boston. The other one that's not talked about enough is Donovan Mitchell, because
Wow.
I think you guys, if you follow basketball as much as anybody,
Yeah.
the tea leaves have been out there for a while that he is not
Yeah,
long
he's gone.
for Cleveland, right? As
Yeah.
soon as he's, once his contract gets to a point where it's an expiring deal, or maybe even after this season, he's not going to re-sign there. Someone's going to make a trade for him.
Yeah.
And when you're that kind of a player, and we've seen this play out now repeatedly, you can almost dictate where you want to go when you have that kind of leverage. He didn't have as much leverage in Utah because his contract hadn't even kicked in yet. So Donovan Mitchell right now would be the guy I would say is like the most realistic next star to come.
Wow. See, us in New York, us Knicks fans, we think it's a lock that he's coming
It's
to
a
the
lock.
party.
Yeah, that's what the East Coast feels like. He's
So
coming.
why didn't they make the deal before? Like, I mean, we're getting off.
They
We're
didn't
talking
want to
Lakers
give up
podcast.
RJ.
But
The package was just ridiculous.
do you still? Because you're gonna have to give him up to get him. You have to give up
I know.
RJ to get him.
I know.
So
But we'll see.
now is it ridiculous or is it?
It might be. I mean, my thing is like if you don't want to sign quickly, you can add quickly into the deal. I like RJ Barrett, but I'm not like crazy about RJ Barrett. I'll take Donovan Mitchell over RJ Barrett in a heartbeat. So you have Barrett, you have quickly, you have all these picks. I think they can get a deal done with that. I just wouldn't want to give up like quickly Grimes and RJ. Like 3, no, you take 2. Take 2 of them.
What about former Lakers Julius Randle?
No, it's too much. Too much.
The whole NBA, in case you haven't noticed, it breaks up between future Lakers and former Lakers. That's it. Like there's no in between.
Everyone at some point is
gonna be a Laker.
All right, Donovan Mitchell. That's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first I've heard of that. So if that happens, I'm gonna play this clip again and give you your flowers for sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You got it, man. All right, so let's play some For Real or Fugazi.
For real or fugazi? Are they the real thing? Or are they a fraudulent entity not dignified enough to be inserted into the conversation?
This is where I'm going to name some Western Conference teams, and Rob's going to let me know if this team is for real or Fugazi, if they are a threat to the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's start with the team you bounced in the Western Conference semifinals, the Golden State Warriors. For real or Fugazi, threats to the Los Angeles Lakers?
Fugazi. They
Fugazi.
just don't have
No,
the size.
There's no world where they beat you guys in 7.
They just don't have the size. Like and the way that their roster is built is not built to go against the Lakers.
Okay.
Like it's just sometimes it's that easy. Like the Golden State against almost any other team, they can run with them as much as anybody. The problem is that when the Lakers have 2 guys in LeBron and AD who attack the paint and attack the rim like that, and your only big man is 2 inches shorter than the Lakers' big man, and Draymond Green is giving up 40 pounds to LeBron James coming downhill. Like they need wings. They need a Taurean Prince type. Like they just need guys who are big. They need a center, even if it's a JaVale McGee who's not even any good, but just being big is a skill at this point in the NBA. Like the Chris Paul deal, I understand they had to get rid of Jordan Poole, but it doesn't help them in the playoffs specifically.
Yeah.
Like you can't play that small of a team in the playoffs.
It's almost like they should have catered their roster to beating the Lakers specifically because they could handle everybody else, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like even Denver, like Draymond, because he's short and more stout, he handles Jokic probably better than anybody in the NBA, even better than AD, because he can get underneath him. And so Jokic can hit those little flip shots, at a really high clip, but that's better than getting him at the rim, like over and over, right? So Anthony Davis doesn't have that. He's long and lean, so he can get bodied inside the paint in a way that Draymond doesn't get bodied by Jokic.
All right, next team, the Sacramento Kings, for real or Fugazi?
Fugazi.
Fugazi.
Same thing as the Warriors, just a less good version.
Right. Sabonis got bodied in the Warriors series. So
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this is going to be interesting. One, Los Angeles Clippers at full health with everybody playing for or Fugazi.
Oh, that's an ultimate for real.
Okay.
At full health, they are probably the best team in the Western Conference.
Really?
The problem is that they're never at full health.
I get so many people who, like, I bring up the Clippers on the show, and Quab will attest to this, where the Clippers come up and, like, no.
No.
Don't trust them. Don't care if they're healthy. Just don't trust them. But it's interesting to hear you say that as a Laker fan.
They are built exactly how you would want a 2023 NBA team to be built.
Okay.
They got skilled wings. They got shooting everywhere. They have enough size where they can play big. They have their wings are so skilled they can play small if they want to.
Yeah.
The problem is, as much as Anthony Davis gets the street clothes nickname, he plays more than both of those guys.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook, for all of his faults, with that specific team, is great because they have shooting everywhere, and all these guys can defend. And it's like, if they're able to be healthy and more, actually not as important, but almost as important, if they take the regular season seriously, where they actually build some chemistry, for an extended period of time, I wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I was always high on them, but I think after a while, it's been like, this year 4 with Kawhi and Paul George, maybe year 5, and it's just like, how can I put stock into a team that I haven't even really seen play together? And when they do play together, they're kind of underwhelming. But the ceiling for sure, I think, is there. I just don't know if they're going to get there. I'm really surprised that you say that.
I wouldn't bank on them being healthy. That's the big, that's the issue.
The big if.
All right, next team, the Phoenix Suns, for real or Fugazi?
For real.
For real.
Absolutely.
The depth isn't an issue for them.
It is an issue, but when you have that much firepower,
yeah,
you can overcome a lot. And they're going to have defensive issues. They obviously have depth issues.
Yeah.
But you saw in the playoffs with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, they can go for 40 apiece in any playoff game, and make it look kind of easy because of how quickly they can score. So I think that even though the Lakers would, feast at the rim against them in a playoff, just like they will with a lot of other teams, Phoenix can score just as quickly on the other end. And as long as they don't allow themselves to get into a track meet like they did against the Clippers, where those games were much closer than they needed to be, and they were playing these guys 45 plus minutes, if they can keep them closer to 40 and just tread water in those, I think that they're going to be really, really good.
All right. Final team. I'm not going to say the Nuggets because they won the championship. I don't want to disrespect them like that. So we're going to go with the
Fugazi. Nuggets are Fugazi. Bruce Brown is a huge loss.
Oh, so are you I think Bruce Bannon is a big loss, but I
it is a huge loss. But they're stacked.
Memphis Grizzlies though, for real Fugazi.
For the Lakers?
Yeah.
Fugazi.
Okay. So healthy Ja. If they had a healthy Ja, Marcus Smart doesn't do anything for you. Doesn't move the needle.
No, I think that they need a second guy. Like Desmond Bane is a great shooter.
Yeah.
But asking him to create for other people is not what he does.
Okay.
And they don't, outside of Ja Morant, they don't have anybody else who can really create for other people. And if you're going to get into the playoffs, which we saw against the Lakers, that's important. But the other thing that's important is in the regular season, if you watch the way Memphis plays, especially defensively, they thrive off of chaos. Turnovers, block shots, up and down. They're very athletic, and that's how they score. You get in the playoffs and you slow it down, and everything's in the half court. It's Ja Morant pick and roll, and then what?
Yeah. Nothing.
So I think if they're able to get another, that's why they were linked to all these different guys offering 3 and 4 first round picks for like OG Anunoby and just anybody else on the wing who can do something. That would be huge for them. And I think that they still are primed to make another move if they want to. But the problem is, you're a small market team. They already paid Ja. They just paid Bane. I think, I don't know if Jaren Jackson's coming up for an extension, but they're one of those teams where it's like, well, can we really afford to add another player? And it sucks, but that's the reality.
So you're saying that they need Dylan Brooks back? That might be the move.
Hey man,
Anyway.
Dylan Brooks is like the greatest NBA villain you could create.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Like not just the way that he
hate you,
plays,
Bob.
but
I
the
hate you.
post game. Like he straight up had like jeans on and an Under Armour shirt like tucked in. Like, oh my gosh! Like,
I thought I could mention the Grizzlies without Dylan Brooks being brought up, but I guess I was wrong, Quab.
You thought.
I thought I could do it.
You thought.
Wrong.
if you were thinking, you wouldn't have thought that. That's
Exactly.
All right, man. So before we let you go, last question. I know it's before the preseason. Trade deadline hasn't even come in the middle of the season, but if you were to give a prediction, the 2023-2024 Lakers will finish blank.
Oh, probably Western Conference Finals.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So same as last year, basically.
Same as last year. I think that
Okay.
they need more size. You know, I don't think Jackson Hayes is the answer as the backup. If they can get Christian Wood, you know, he has a lot of faults, but at least he can fit a specific need that they have, which is to stretch the floor.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's important. But, you know, it's really hard to duplicate the Nuggets chemistry.
Yeah.
I believe that Phoenix at some point is going to move DeAndre Ayton and get multiple pieces.
Okay.
And suddenly they're going to have a little bit more depth. And, yeah, I think that those two teams are going to be – I'm not counting the Clippers because I don't think they're going to be healthy. Even though if they are healthy, I'd pick them. But,
Right.
yeah, I think those two teams specifically are going to be right in their way.
All right. Well, Rob, thanks for coming on, man. I definitely appreciate it. This was a good time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If you want to promote anything, you want to plug anything, plug any shows, your
Sure.
Twitter.
Obviously, check out, follow me on Twitter for more hot takes at the producer RG. Check out the Odd Couple radio show. Check out the Volume Jason McIntyre Straight Fire podcast. More specifically, check out this upcoming Monday, the Odd Couple radio show. I will be co-hosting with Chris Broussard.
Nice.
So if you thought I had
Nice.
wild takes here, just wait till Monday. I'm gonna empty the clip.
I'm going to call in with like one of those voice changers. Set you up. It'd be great. All right, listen, if you want to follow Dime, you can at the Dime NBA. I'm Josh Rodriguez at Josh_Rodriguez_. He's Quab at Quab AKS. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Dime.